Hey guys, it's Mario Fan 520, and before I start this review of Ant-Man and the Wasp, I just want to say that you can tell that it's completely dark right now. Well, for the reason for that is that the room that I usually am going to do my videos from now in is completely blocked right now, so I actually have to edit this movie review by showing nothing but screens and showing nothing but pictures of the movie while I'm talking about this movie in my review and stuff like that. So I don't know how long this is gonna happen for, but hopefully it'll just be only for this movie review. So anyway, let's talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man and the Wasp is Marvel's latest film, and it was released a couple of days ago. So Ant-Man and the Wasp revolves around the story of Scott Lang, who's trying to be a father figure and basically Ant-Man at the same time. And for a while, he's put on house arrest. But then later on, things start to take a little turn. He runs into this woman named Hope Pam, who is secretly taking him out of the house, and team up with her father to find her mother, who could supposedly still be alive after an incident that happened a long time ago with her, and also to retrieve a case and be careful in the corners that they turn, because danger is lurking, as well as this figure known as Ghost. Now, when it comes to Ant-Man, the first film is great. I love the first film. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies. It's original, and it brought a Marvel character that no one really talks about. It's a character that was from the comics. The first Ant-Man was a blast. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a really good time. I really enjoyed this movie. I saw this movie with my uncle yesterday, and I gotta say, this movie was very fun to watch. It did not disappoint, but this movie does have some flaws, and I'll get to that later in this review. But the things that I really loved about Ant-Man and the Wasp is it wasn't really just an action film that you can enjoy and stuff like that. To me, this film shows the ways on how Scott can be a father figure and basically try to become Ant-Man again. And even though Scott doesn't really have that much character development in this film, he does get a lot of laughs. He was really funny in this film. The jokes that he would crack, me and my uncle were laughing non-stop. And there's a lot of good jokes in this film. And this movie does know how to create really good humor when it comes to comedy / action. Ant-Man and the Wasp has it. It really does. And I gotta say, this movie definitely does know how to entertain, not just action, but like I said, Ant-Man and the Wasp has a really good sense of humor to it. And sometimes there is an over-reliance on that humor and stuff like that, and which I'll get into later in the review. I'll talk about the over-reliance of the humor, but overall, this movie is really good. The quality looks fantastic, the action-packed scenes, they're really great. Something that you would expect out of a Marvel movie, basically. And the acting is surprisingly good. It really is. One of the actors that I was absolutely blown away by in this movie was Hannah John Kavan, who plays as this girl named Ava. Really great in this movie. She's one of the best actors in this entire film. She's also known as a character called Ghost, and you can tell that she doesn't necessarily. When you're watching this movie, you can tell that this character is confused and she's harmed and stuff like that. You can tell that she's harmed, and when she explains her backstory, which I'm not going to spoil anything about what the backstory means, but once you just hear all of these things, it's just riveting, and you feel sympathy for this character. And even though she's harming people, she doesn't want to do it on purpose, but I really appreciated that they added a character like this in this film. Really loved it. I thought Lawrence Fishburne was also really good in this movie. And the connection between these two characters that they share in this film are absolutely riveting. And it makes it very important to the story. And I think that's what made the story really good in general. One of the parts, at least. And I would have honestly loved to see a lot more connections between characters in this film. And there are some more. But the humor just takes away from that most of the time in this film. And you can tell, when you watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, you can tell that this is not just an action adventure thrill ride where you have to go stop some certain villain from some kind of evil disaster that's going to come upon the universe. This movie revolves around these characters going on an adventure because of love. And you can tell by the characterization of Dr. Hank and Hope Pam that they're desperate to see Janet again, and wondering if she could be alive or not makes the performances in this movie absolutely realistic. And these two characters were some of the best parts of the entire film, honestly. I also love how well-rounded up the score is in this film. It almost feels like some kind of spy-type film. It opens in the beginning of the movie, it happens in the ending of the movie, and it fits the movie perfectly because I don't think there's necessarily another Marvel movie that's able to capture this kind of music. I mean, I could be wrong, because I technically haven't seen every Marvel movie, but the music in this movie fits perfectly. It really does. And I think most of that... And I think most of the score working in this film comes from the story in this movie. The story is really good in this movie. And because the story is so good in this film, the score absolutely works. And now let's talk about Paul Rudd in this movie. He does his best as Ant-Man, honestly. I wouldn't say he's great like he was in the first film, but he does his best. He does have a lot of his moments in this film, honestly. There are times where you seem to like the character enough, and there are times where you can tell the character sometimes gets annoying when he mentions about being home all the time because he's on house arrest and stuff like that. And I think that just takes away from the interest in his character. Again, he hardly has any character development in this film at all. He hardly does, but you somewhat get to like him, and I think it's because of the humor he brings into this film or somewhat. But he does make up for helping the team. He really does. He's a big part of it. Now that we're getting further into the review, it's time that I talk about some of my issues that I had with this movie. Because yeah, there are some major issues I had with this movie. Even though I thought this movie was really fun, I had some issues. I think that I said that the humor does hold up really well in this movie. Sometimes the humor does go way too overboard, and not with only Scott, but with other certain characters in this film. There are moments with other characters who will go overboard with using some certain jokes, and it repeats, and it sometimes gets a little irritating, even though sometimes it's funny. But I thought I would kind of like it if the movie took itself a little more seriously, but that's just my first flaw with this movie. My other issue is the characterization. Like I mentioned, some of the characters in this movie don't have that much characterization. There are a couple in this movie that have really great characterization. The other ones are just characters that are there to be on screen and save the day or something like that and help out, or they're just worthless villains. Some of the villains in this movie, technically all the villains in this movie aren't even good. Ghost is not even considered a villain, as I said. She's just a character that's confused or should I say a figure that's just confused. So she doesn't necessarily count. But when you put like the villains in this movie who are trying to go after the case, they're just worthless villains. And I think the characterization in this movie is not really that great, in some characters at least. And the villains are really not that good in this movie either. But that's all my flaws with Ant-Man and the Wasp. Overall, Ant-Man and the Wasp is a blast. I highly recommend you checking out this movie. Not as good as the first Ant-Man in my opinion, but it is a really good movie, and it is still a really good movie. If you're a fan of Marvel, please check this movie out, because definitely worth watching for all Marvel fans, actually. And I gotta say, Ant-Man and the Wasp was a really good time for me at the movie theaters, and I'm actually looking forward to see this movie again sometime. And even though this movie does have flaws, I did appreciate what this movie was and what it did for the audience, because this is definitely one of the movies, in my opinion, that respect Marvel and for what it is today. I'm going to give Ant-Man and the Wasp a B. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this review of Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm so sorry you couldn't actually get to see my face talking about this movie review. to you guys. But like I said, the room that I had to do my movie reviews for now and while I was on vacation is now blocked. So now I have to do voiceovers of movie reviews for I don't even know how long. But until I get that room back, I'm going to be doing voiceovers of movie reviews. So, but anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this review of Ant-Man and the Wasp. Look forward to other movie reviews that I'll be doing soon. You guys are the best. I love every single one of you. And always thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I am Mario Fan 520, and I will see you next time. Peace out.